at that point. You know what I mean? It's pretty wild. So when you see people kind of moving into that on a larger scale, but it's veiled, you know, it makes me go like, you know, you.
Are we started?
Yeah.
Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her meat, and she has mixed her wine. She has also furnished her table. She has set out her bait. She cries out in the highest place of the city. Whoever sees will let him turn in here. As for him who lacks understanding, she says to him, come, eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have made. Forsake foolishness and live, and go in the way of understanding.
All right,
Jonathan.
It's good to see you, Father. I was like, is this part of the discussion? It's good to see you, Father.
Good to see you too.
That was great. I love coming.
This is great.
Kansas City.
Glad to have you.
It's a great parish.
Thank
Beautiful
God.
icons.
Thank God. Yeah, I was kind of surprised too, which makes it better.
It's also because I didn't give the right date. I told my friend that I was coming, and then I gave the wrong date, and then it was like in the morning. I guess I surprised everyone.
This is great.
Just showing up.
This is great. It's much better this way. How have you been? You are always busy.
Yeah, for sure.
You're always doing a lot, and this is a hard part because I was thinking like, man, there's just so much we can talk about. But I just want to talk about a couple things to start off with you, because one of the first things is you're really busy. You did ARC again this year. I really appreciated what you had to say. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, actually, was the kind of proliferation of AI icons.
Yeah.
The proliferation of AI-influenced church art, culture, things being influenced, you know, kind of dovetailing a little bit out of our last little thing we were just talking about with exterior influences, kind of influencing. What made you, first of all, did you get to, they give you a theme, what the theme's gonna be, right?
Yeah, they're the ones who asked me to talk about AI. And I mean, obviously I've been talking about it for years now, and so I felt comfortable with that subject. It's probably why they asked me. And also they put me at the end of the day when all of the AI people had spoken. So they had like the head of Anthropic for Europe and Asia, and they had some pretty big people. And one of the AI ethicist who works for Anthropic, the lady who basically assures that Claude doesn't go crazy, basically. And talks to like all these different religious traditions. And so I was the last one of the day, and so I was really nervous because I was like, I'm gonna talk to all these AI people. But the reaction was really positive. You can't see it in the video, but people gave a standing ovation. So I thought, okay, so the questions that people feel nervous. Even people that are even pro-AI or for it, they also feel nervous. It's very few people have a kind of unmitigated love of this thing. Most people feel it's ambiguous. And so I think it's important for the church, for Christians, to stay in that ambiguity and kind of open it up and be able to help people see that this is a very dangerous thing that we're bringing onto ourselves, and especially with the posture that people are taking towards it. So I think you're right in terms of the church will really have to ask ourselves this question. In the Protestant churches, they're already dealing with AI sermons, all of this kind of stuff.
Unmitigated.
People just have their AI write the sermon, and then they just basically read it, and so I think, and the same, like you said, now for a while the AI wasn't really able to master iconography. They would create monsters. Like I remember, it would create
six fingers.
Yeah, or even like, let's say like Christ with like the veil of the Theotokos, something really monstrous, like something that would be, that would cause excommunication if it would ever like appear in a church, But then now it seems like it's mastered it more and is able to actually represent what we would recognize as being traditional icons. And so the question is, what do we do now that we have that? And I think that we have to, it's forcing us, I think, to be deliberate about certain things. So for example, in terms of theology, you would say that the means of production of the icon is not part of our dogmatic statement about the icon, right? So, because obviously the people at the Seventh Ecumenical Council didn't think that you would have robots making icons, right? They didn't really think of that. So now I think we have to be deliberate and ask ourselves the question. A lot of people have an insight that it's wrong, but why? Like, what's the problem with it? It's not a dogmatic problem. It's an ecclesial problem. It's a problem of what is the church, and how, and then it can help us actually also, I think, answer other questions, right? So I don't want to accuse anyone, but in certain jurisdictions now, right, they have all their services on apps, people in church with their phone on the app, that kind of stuff. And I think that the AI icon is going to push us to ask questions about that, and then ultimately it's going to help us sort out a lot of this other stuff, which I think is difficult. And in terms of the icon, I think that we have to realize now that the act of making the icon is part of the liturgy. Right. That it is obviously it's not directly. It's like a kind of external. It's an adjunct to the liturgy, and that we have to remember. We have to remember that.
It's interesting because, the church, she's never proactive in these things. She responds.
Yeah, of course.
She responds, which is, in our time, there's so much that needs to be responded to. And for a lot of us, I'm starting to take the position of just waiting in kind of awe and with bated breath of how she's going to start responding. Because a lot of these things are coming to a kind of critical mass, but as you know, they've been building for a while.
Yeah.
And these are issues of the anthropology of the church. Like, who do we say man is? Who do we say what man is? And that's something that is getting lost, I think, to some degree also with the transhumanist argument, because all these things are like the kind of tentacles reaching out and kind of in a bad way and approaching things. But in regards of like where the icon and the misappropriation of the icon, our lack of defined theology around things like, have these dogmatic statements. Like, for instance, for me, I found that, starting in 20, it reveals something that many of us knew implicitly. We had the intuition that, icons, they're sacramentals, to use that term. And just like so many of other things, they are not adjacent, but they are these aspects of where the spring of liturgical life, you see it flowing out of the temple, right?
Yeah, it's a good way to think about it.
And so in 20, we began to see like there was such a kind of irrational, concerted effort that seemed removed from the theology of the icon, that seemed removed from even some of what the icon says anthropologically, right? But because it was kind of attacked, right, in regards of like vector of disease, all those things, which it stands, I think, for us to talk about that just a little bit, because one of the things that was really clear for me and for a lot of people was our tradition has countless, it's in the calendar every day, the calendar has some sort of commemoration of an icon of the Mother of God, usually Our Lady, or Christ beating back a horde or a plague or whatever. So that response is in our tradition. And it's one that is, empirical. It's one that's empirical. So anyways, so I think that began to reveal like, well, we've lost sight of what the icon actually is, and started. It's interesting because some of the soft iconoclastic, some soft kind of iconoclastic like positions people might have started taking in with a kind of periphery influence from Protestantism. People coming in, not having some of those Protestant iconoclastic tendencies like really purged from them. Another rabbit trail, we'll get back to it, but I remember back in the days of like Friendster, right? And like Friendster was like pre MySpace, It's like MySpace and Friendster, but it was like you remember MySpace, right?
Yeah,
I'm dating myself. So Friendster, I'm just saying that to give reference. So in the Friendster forum, back in the day, I remember watching an interaction with a couple people, right? And the one person says, this is early, do I really need to venerate icons to be Orthodox? And the response was, No, not really. It's something that you can kind of take or leave, you know? And I remember even back then just being like, what? You know, I couldn't handle it. This is, so the date is important here.
Yeah.
The date is important here. So I saw that even back then, this kind of tendency. And so for a lot of people who may have come into the church, their stance in regards of our stance, like on Sunday of Orthodoxy, I mean, at this point, I've had 3 people I could name, I'm not going to, but I've had 3 people walk away from the faith, eventually either not completing a catechism, or they said, this is just too much, and what it revealed was there's this cancer that was still in their soul and in their mind around it, because the anathemas are too much. It's like, you know, like really over an icon, see that type of ignorance, right? It reveals something. So anyways, so I see that there, and then we understand, well, the icons are sacramentals, and which reveals something, right? Which leads us to this in regards of AI icons. And of course, number one, obviously, you know, the medium is the message, and it's very applicable here, right? The connection between God and man. But it also begins to show us like, okay, well, what do we really believe about not just the icon, but what do we really believe about our ability to encounter God? What do we really believe about God's desire, his willingness, and even to some degree, God forbid, you know, his ability to enter into, you know, our space, the material world, all these things. That seems kind of extreme maybe to some people.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is.
Yeah. Well, you know, in terms of that, I mean, you would say, let's play devil's advocate a little bit and say, some people will say that if the AI makes icons, right, and makes them properly, then that's good. It's good because it's part of it's revealing you could say the aspect of the icon that is right. And I'm sure that that's something that you'll hear Orthodox saying, which is that if I can use AI to make an icon that's dogmatically right, that doesn't have mistakes in it, then what's the problem, right? Because here is the icon, and this, because the AI is an extension of the human, then it's just basically an extension of what the icon is doing. And so, and they might say something like that, well, this is God making himself present even through these external means, right? And so these are things that we have to think about, right? That we definitely have to think about. Now, the way to think about it is understanding. The way that I think about it is something about holiness, right? This idea that holiness is dedication. This is related to the phone as well, right? Which is that a holy thing is something which is dedicated to God. And so we take a cup, you know, we have cups everywhere. We have cups in our house, but we have one cup that is dedicated, and we dedicate it to the service of God, and that is what makes it a holy cup, right? And so I think that is, to me, like the direction to take to understand the problem of these technological things in the church, which is that I can ask AI to make AI icon that's Orthodox, but I can ask AI to make an icon of Harry Potter or of whatever, of anyone, and it'll do it. And
it does.
And it does, that's right. And so it is the opposite of dedication, whereas the artist that learns to make icons, because they have been trained, you know, they are under the authority of a bishop, they have all of this hierarchy that they're participating in, therefore they are bound to making canonical icons. And if they don't, there are consequences. And so I think this is the same thing with the phone, right? The phone is a non-dedicated object, right? So you can use the phone to have your prayers, but you can use the phone to watch porn.
That's right.
And so this is a very dangerous thing, right? Because you can move from one thing to the other. It is the opposite of dedication. And that's why I think that this is something I have to take very seriously. And I've seen it, right? I've been in churches where they use the apps, you know, on services. And obviously, young guy, you know, looking at the service, and it just takes one swipe.
That's all it takes.
To go to Instagram and to check out your messages or to do something else. So because it's not dedicated, it is a tool of distraction. That's what non-dedication does. And so to me, that's the vector to be able, for the Orthodox to start thinking about what sacredness is, what holiness is, dedication is, and to then if we can see iconography through that lens, then we understand the need for iconographers who are submitted to a bishop and who have, in some ways, promised, through that submission to make things that are meant to participate in the church in the right way.
I think when you're at you real quick, it's unfortunate because I think the word you're using in our language is the right word. And I want to use a word that's inferior to what you're using, but I think it's going to get the point across more. Set apart, as opposed to dedicated. And the reason why, your word's better, but the reason why I want to just say, I think we should say set apart for holiness, is because dedicated in our adulterous generation still has this weird potential to being like, I got my side piece.
Right, okay.
But really set apart in the sense of like, it's over here.
Yeah.
It has no other purpose but that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that.
And we know it like,
but that.
If someone, if someone was thirsty and went into the altar to get the chalice to put water in to chug some water, it's like that person.
Yeah, it's going to get taken out back.
It's going to get taken out back, right? And so this is how we need to think about these questions, right? And especially, I think, with icons now.
But I think what it shows also, too, is, again, to my point earlier, we haven't really been seeing icons in that light. And this is something we've all wrestled with over the years. Like icons on shirts, it's kind of like in that middle ground. It's getting to the edge. And I think it's good in the sense it's, like you said, it's making us really think about, because if we don't revere the icon as it needs to be revered, why would we expect the world or anything else? Because that's another part of this, is the world is now beginning to appropriate the icon, and not in a kind of just a kitschy way, like every once in a while, because even back in the day, there'd be people who were kind of ortho adjacent, and they would, a lot of high church people and other people, they're kind of ortho adjacent, and they'd want to like appropriate the icon to kind of promote their like whatever. It's now in the sense where people will even use it to, just kind of like almost in a bad pop culture sense way, appropriate some of the kind of affect of the icon, right? So we don't have, our approach of the icon or our understanding of it being holy. I don't even know if we're holding it as the church in that same sense.
I've been thinking a lot about that, and I think that obviously it's very difficult to come to a final decision. So a good example, I think it's in the 13th century in Constantinople, 13th or 14th century. Noble people started putting icons on their clothing, right? So they would have embroidered icons on their clothing. And ultimately the church said they couldn't do that, right? But there's like this limit. So we've always had icons of Christ on coins, right? So people you could use coin to buy, a pint of beer. You could use coins to buy very horrible things, but on the coin is still this icon. And so it's like, how do we find the balance? At least in the way that I see it now is, there is the icons that we venerate, and the veneration that we bring to the icons, in some ways, adds to its sacredness, right? Because we venerate it. And then there are icons that we don't venerate, and there's a reason why we don't venerate it. Usually because they are in this non-dedicated space. So icons on T-shirts are nothing compared to icons on Instagram. Right? It's like, because you're scrolling down Instagram, and then you have an icon, and then you have someone else, or people who use icons as their, profile images, and then they go and say terrible things. So how do we deal with it? This is the way that I come to deal with it, because the question is so difficult. Icons on paper, like people who put them on their business cards or on
bulletins,
on church bulletins,
trash. Right.
So all of this is very difficult. I think we also have to not go crazy, because if we go crazy, then you're gonna, when you have an image of an icon on your computer and you delete it, where does it go? It's like, where is the icon in this case? It's very vague and it's very difficult too. So I tend to also say, well, let's look at the icons that we venerate, and then make sure that the icons that we venerate are not AI icons, are not, kind of just, and it's not like it can't, because we have to be careful, right? Papal reproductions have become miraculous icons,
That's right.
And so it's not.
And poorly executed icons, from an objective perspective, have also.
And so God will use the icon in the way that it used. I'm sure God could heal someone through an icon on Instagram. I think that that's completely possible. But our responsibility, I think, is in some ways to kind of at least be able to guard the dedicated aspect of the
But
icon.
see, someone would make the argument, the normative, and understanding that there's a kind of normative prescribed way in which God works, and guarding that, the exception proves the rule.
Yeah.
And by doing that, it makes it an even safer place of discernment. So when God does do something outside the norm, it makes it easier for us to say, like, well, God does what he wants, right? But this is, right? It's just like God.
Yeah, it's like we have stories of saints that receive communion literally directly from the angels.
Right.
So it's not like God won't commune anyone anywhere in the world, but it doesn't mean that now if I'm having coffee and donuts, I can say, hey, this is communion. It's like, no, it's not communion.
That's
it's like the communion is in the altar.
Well, Saint Sophrony, he says how Saint Silouan would say, God can give, I'm rephrasing it, but God can give direct revelation.
Yeah.
But his way of working is through the spiritual Father. That is the way that he's ordained. That's what he chooses. That doesn't mean that he can't or doesn't, but this is for the majority of time, this is how he does it. But when we don't have that understanding, and I think that's part of the thing is when we don't have that understanding, and sometimes you have to push in one way or the other depending on the context. It's like, if you're working with a certain medium, you would need to maybe, depending on like, if the board is more porous, whatever, you didn't gesso right, whatever, it's like, well, I need to do a little something that you wouldn't usually do to make it work, just because of the context. So in our context, where everything is just kind of like, the Wild West, it's still the kind of Wild West, pun intended.
Yeah.
It's almost like a little push, but I can't agree with you more. We need to make sure that it doesn't become some kind of something other than Orthodox and its draconian kind of grip on it. But it does stand to argue that we need to really start thinking about something. I just talked about it on Monday, the AI Icon, and one of the things I was pointing out is like, and someone corrected me, which is great, because I was like, they're kind of getting really good now. And then someone's like, they're not good, Father. I said, yeah, you're right. They're not good. They're pretty. Like, they're well executed now.
Yeah.
And the thing that's so interesting to me, though, is that that's part of how you can tell almost, is the execution is not human. And it's the same thing when you see something that's so perfectly symmetrical, it's not human, and it's not beautiful anymore.
Yeah.
And then it's to some degree, we have to start knowing what to tell, in regards of like, a tell like in poker.
Yeah.
Like, what's the tell of this not being from, the normative way of a human being in communion with a saint and God. But rather just, now I'm gonna play devil's advocate on the other end, because it's something that I think is interesting, and I actually, it's kind of one of my little personal teachings I give my spiritual children in regards of, I tell them, well, let the devils serve you. Let them serve you, right? And I think there's something to be said for recognizing, because I too have been talking about AI for a long time in a different context. But over the years, it's been like, well, what do I do, Father? I'm in this sector here in AI. And so as it's been approaching, the question has been like, well, what do I do? And early out the gate, especially with like Cyprian and I, we're like, this is like a Ouija board. These are like demons that we're essentially potentially accessing or giving a body to. So what do you do? And as it's gotten to the point where everyone's using it, because you open up Google.
If you search on Google, you're using AI.
You're using AI.
There's no way that you can avoid
using it. You can't avoid it now.
Unless you're completely disconnected from
no one is. They have cell phones on Athos. Like no one is, right? And so the thing is like, I just say, well, let them serve you. And the reality of, okay, this is an unfortunate thing. What's left for us? Well, like St. Paul says, let's not be ignorant of the wiles of the devil. Okay, at least I know this is a potential thing. It's almost the same thing of like, well, that part of town, there's strip clubs, pornography shops, crack, and bars. You can not drive there, but for most people, they're gonna have to like drive through there. They have some place like that in their city. or your kid's phone, whatever.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with it. So what do? If you go to that extreme, which is its own kind of weird, proud, vain search for purity, which is also, a right-handed blow in some regards.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying? If you go down that road, you're going to have a whole nother set of problems. Yeah. So I'm not advocating for that either, but I think this thing of let the devil serve you, but you have to know what the wiles of the devil are. And I think I'm just trying to refocus what you're saying, because I can't agree more. We need to really start talking about it intentionally, explicitly, and the conversation needs to kind of go up higher, because the reality is you can't escape it. And for right now, we're having to kind of relegate ourselves to I know I'm in the devil's play box, whatever, sandbox, but how am I going to deal with that?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with anything. It's the devils are always looking to deal with us. They're looking to capitalize on our passions, essentially. So when we're not aware of that, we're opening ourselves up to just something worse. So in this case here, in regards of holiness, in regards of, what does the icon say about our relationship to God, our worship of God, our interaction with the material world? Because that's a whole nother thing, the disembodiment of us and what's happening. And I think that's the thing that I don't think we're seeing it. That seems like one of the subtle knives in the side of this kind of increasing disembodiment. And I have a speculation, it's kind of an intuition, I haven't fleshed it out quite yet. But I think that's a weird part of why pornography has such a strong hold. Mm-hmm. It isn't just the accessibility of it. There's a kind of disembodiment of it.
Yeah, it's succubus.
Succubus.
For sure.
Well,
100%.
Well played, Jonathan.
That's what.
Well played, Jonathan. Succubus.
It's like anybody who doesn't believe in succubi is an idiot at this point, because that's clearly what's going on here.
Yeah.
Because it's a disembodied, it's a spirit using an image of an actual woman, disembodying it, and then using it to kind of enter into your soul and to manipulate you and to get your seed. That's what the succubus
literally
does.
Literally. Yeah.
So it's like we've discovered that succubi clearly exist.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking a lot about. I can say how I use AI. I've been obviously we use AI basically as assistants, right? That's the way. Technology in some ways what it is. In some ways, technology is slave labor, right? In a simple sense, that's what we always use technology for. It's you could get 50 people to come dig a hole in your yard, but it's it's not reasonable to do that. I'll get a backhoe, come in, and so that's the way I use AI. I use it to sometimes track, things, to compile information, to do that. And then you can also, I think, one of the things I'm thinking of, I have a friend of mine who's now, they started a service. They're starting to translate text using AI, right? So I think that something like that, under the supervision of a holy person, someone that's in the hierarchy of the church, that could be useful, because we have 10% of St. Maximus. I don't know what the percentage, but a very small percentage of his texts that are translated, and it would take 1,000 years because there's no resources to get there. But if we had a computer translate it in a brute form and had someone go back in, and then we might be able to access riches that were not accessible to us. So, a lot of people might say, no, that's too far, but these are the kinds of things that I think we need to definitely think about, how it is that, like you said, these mechanical, let's say, proxies of intelligence can serve something that will be good.
Yeah, I think that's a good resolution. So in regards of icons.
Yeah, like the AI icons. Well, man, to me, that's something that we have to kind of keep at bay. Just keep that at bay, because I don't really see why you would do that at this point. Because what is it doing? If you ask the AI to generate an icon, why?
Well, part of the problem is, and this is why I wanted to come back to it, because part of the problem is that we are moving forward in this kind of the system of having an apprentice and apprenticing people. And an apprenticeship isn't just about giving someone the technical skill. Apprenticeship is about giving one the spirit of that craft and the work, and that also includes your relationship to the material, your relationship to God. And the icon is really explicit in that. And so for a lot of people, they've never had that, or they've never had the thirst for the search of a master. See, I'm really big on, like, even those things are part of it. Your desire to find someone to teach you is part of how you become an iconographer. It's how you become anything. If you don't have a desire for it, you don't have a desire to want to receive, if you just want to get to, how do I get to the end and just have this product that I can now say, I do this. I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah, well, sure.
You know what I'm saying? I think part of the problem is people just, they want the identity, they want the fruit of having something that they can say, I did, but they don't want to have the, you know, it's like we see it in relationships, unfortunately now. It's like the guy doesn't want the wife to care for her to whatever, he just wants the end goal.
Yeah.
And that isn't being checked, you know, generation after generation now. And I think we're starting, I've already started seeing it for years. I mean, I remember when, in my arduous journey of trying to find someone to teach me, it was just like, it was crazy, but that was part of it. That's what kept me in the game. That's what made me hungry. That's what made me pray. That's what made me sacrifice for it. I bled for it. And then coming up and seeing people not only not having to bleed for it, they don't want to bleed for it. And then I think that's part of the thing is it's just like, well, if you don't understand that you being in that process with the material, in the prayer, in the frustration, which facilitates prayer, if you don't get that, then what is your icon anyways? Because that's a part of it is like, at least I'm sure it is for you, but for me too, well, for me, I'm sure it is for you. When I interact with an icon, even if it's not hand painted, I mean, just outside of the AI question, it's like, I understand what's going in there. It's just like the wedding ring. It's like a symbol. It's like the wedding ring, you know, a guy would rather have his, you know, finger cut off than like lose that wedding ring, like, or the wife, whatever. Why? Because Jimmy, you know, worked 60 hours, 70 hours a week for 3 months to save up for that ring. And he sat with the jeweler. Hey, I want this, I want that. And his love for her, and all that was poured into the ring. And so that ring is not just a sign, it's an actual symbol in the traditional sense. It's embodying their love. An AI icon doesn't have that.
No, it hasn't. I mean, it has nothing. It definitely has none of that, that's for sure. I mean? And so, you know, you can ask yourself a question, like I'm trying to think of the times that I've used image generation. So I do use image generation sometimes, and it's usually, but not, I would never do it for icons just because I don't understand what the purpose would be, right? It's like, why would we have icons, like, you know, you can find a beautiful reproduction. If you don't have someone to paint one, you can definitely find a beautiful reproduction of the icon you want, whether it's an icon of Christ or it could be a famous icon, you know, that we know of. But usually when I generate images, it's usually to kind of, it's like to give myself a quick sketch idea, right? So, like, for example, like we recently did a logo for our new publishing company. And I had an idea, I was like, oh, I'd like to see the holy doors, because it's called Solea. So I thought like the holy doors and then the name Solea under the holy doors, you know, so that it's as if like the name is kind of the Solea and it's like this like barrier between the holy and the secular. And so I did go on AI and I said, well, give me 2 doors, you know, like that have kind of filigree in it. I put the name, put the word underneath, and then I took that, put it in Photoshop, played with it a little bit, and then gave it to my designer. And the thing we ended up coming up with was completely different from what I had, but it was a way to kind of quickly generate something. And so I'm willing to do that in terms of using AI for image generation. But yeah, it's weird. Like we all have to ask ourselves that question, you know, because you can put it, you know, and you can put your pictures, your photos in AI, and then it'll generate a photo of you that's like perfect. Not perfect in the sense that it makes you look better, which is that it's like, if I wanted a good portrait of me and a photo, what would it look like? And the AI can do that. And it's like, well, is that a picture of you? It's complicated.
Yeah. Like what?
Because
like,
if I sat for a portrait because I wanted something of me, you know, then it's all someone else is making it. It's not a photo, right? So, yeah, all these questions, and we're gonna be forced to ask all these questions.
Yeah, and we're not asking them. You and I are asking them right now.
Yeah. It's also because people don't, especially we're both artists, and so we think we understand what goes into making an image. We understand that image making is never simple reproduction of reality. It's always framing, it's always directing, it's always composing. And so then when we have this idea of something automatic doing it, we ask ourselves, well, what's behind the composition, what's behind the framing, right? And that's why a lot of people who aren't artists, usually they don't realize that these are important questions, like what do you put in front of someone and how you frame it and everything.
Yeah, it's interesting because it also speaks to, and I've seen this too, I'm sure you have, but there's also artists there's people who have the skill to execute draftsmanship, sculpting, whatever. And I'm not saying this to be pretentious, but for lack of, for poor language on my end, I struggle saying artist, and the reason why is because, it's like I told people back in the day, it's like, you can teach, I can teach anyone to draw to a certain degree.
Yeah, agree.
But there's something that happens where it's like, oh, you're an artist, and that is the ability to navigate the inner space. I think that's one of the big things, because we can think of artists that, from a technical perspective or whatever, it's like, whatever, but you go like, because what is it? Like, that guy's an artist. Even if you don't think that his ability to execute is the best, you recognize his ability to navigate the inner space. I don't even want to say the subconscious, because that's saying something. Let's just say the inner space.
Yeah.
And so even to whatever degree you're aware of where ideas actually come from, because that's another thing, mapping, when someone kind of starts exploring, well, where does your idea actually come from? And it gets into this whole thing about communing with things, but spirits, all this stuff. I always go there, but there's a reason why I always go there. Because everything, including whether it's rocket ships to whatever technology, and art in many ways is just a technology.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good way of thinking about it.
You know what I mean?
Art, and in the ancient world, these words were always kind of close to each other, right? The R's in Latin, the arts were also, the art of cheese making or the art of making wine. It was the means, right, of bringing things together towards the purpose. And I think you're right. Is if you, especially for visual artists, for example, you have to understand that your capacity to render is a language. Right, it's almost like learning English or learning a certain form. But then what you do with it, that's what matters, right? It's like you can learn English, but you could then, what you say is boring, or it's just mechanical, or it's just grammatically correct. But who cares, right?
That's right. Who cares?
And the same with people that are really good at reproducing reality. Let's say they make very beautiful reproductions, but then, you see it and you're like, wow, and then you forget it.
And then you forget it.
It doesn't stay with you because it doesn't have something that is making you see why it's relevant. And I think that that's definitely something that you're right. And we have to remember, as for visual artists, is that skill is not sufficient for an artist to be interesting.
And that's why, for me, that getting back to that apprenticeship model, and I'm not talking like a LARPing sense, but I'm saying relationship, mentor, student, teacher, it's so important, because even in that relationship, there are things that are brought out because of the relation to. Like when someone's just receiving something coldly, like I'll give you like a great example, Rosemary Edmonds, right? This may seem like it's jumping ship, but it's not. Rosemary Edmonds, who's a translator, okay? And she's most famously known because she translated all Sophrony stuff into English. Well, the thing is like, I'm really big on that, because I'm one of those people, because of just who my life is, I'm constantly aware of how crippled I am, because I'm constantly dealing with people, usually with Serbia, right? But in other words, just like my lack of the language kills me. So I'm constantly aware of it. So it's the same thing, it's like Sophrony saved my life. You know what I mean? And I understand, I've done everything I can, including having relationships with his spiritual children, right? I've done everything I can to try to have deeper communion with Sophrony. Now, part of that for me is also recognizing and honoring and praying for Rosemary Edmonds, because people don't understand that the reason why so much of Sophrony is able to come across to us is because of her translation. And her translations are good translations. They're authentic translations. She knew him. You see what I'm saying? The art of translation, kind of what you were talking about before. It's like we have this small percentage of Maximus's body and really just Orthodox theology and teaching in general. It's such a small portion that's been translated, even now, which is crazy, right? But if we don't pay attention to who's actually overseeing that, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Because the translation changes a lot, as you know. And so
now you're arguing against the possibility that AI could help us with translation.
Well,
it could be dangerous.
I'm saying it can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Because I've worked with AI translations, and I've seen this doesn't capture the spirit at all.
Yeah.
In fact, as you and I both know, that's part of the problem with pornography. Pornography gives someone the nuts and bolts of sex, but it has nothing to do with sex.
Yeah.
It's like I tell people all the time, it's a terrible, offensive analogy, but I have to use it all the time because it's like magic. Magic, like ceremonial magic with a K, and prayer, the means, the approach are same.
Right, they look similar, right?
They're the same, but they couldn't be further apart. It's sex. It's a back alley rape, and the wedding night of a couple that's been in love with each other since they were 12. The mechanics is the same, but they couldn't be further apart. And for us as the church, we have to guard and steward that reality, because that reality is what the world's lost or never had. In some regards, that's what we're supposed to usher the world into, is like this experience that you all have of sex, of art, of all those things. You have it because a God who created all of it and you loves you. And it's fine, he loves you so much, and he's so humble, he lets you participate in this. But just so you know, you don't understand what we understand because of relation to him. And that's not a proud thing, that's like an invitation. Because that unspoken thing, I think that's so, you can't grasp it unless your eye has been opened.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And that's what I think we're missing. And that's part of the problem I feel with, you and I were talking a little bit about, Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and that kind of inferiority complex. Well, I see this all the time in regards to the church. I know, trust me. I see this all the time in regards to the church, in regards to when we start talking about mental health and things like this. It's like, well, the church doesn't have anything to say, speak to the experts. Well, the church has everything to say about the state of mental health, right? Why? Because the church has the art of prayer. And everything about that is in relation to. So to bring it all back in, all these things are connected because all of these things speak to a relationship, right? The apprentice, the mentor, is getting something beyond just how do I apply graphite to paper. It's how did you apply it? And even things that the mentor has that he hasn't even articulated himself, the student picks up. There would be no Silouan without Sophrony. Because Sophrony was able to draw things out. Silouan was all but illiterate, but he was able to draw things out because of his love for his mentor. And that love for his mentor, that was an icon of his love for Christ. You see what I'm saying? The love of the icon, the awareness of what art is, the awareness of what technology is, all of these things, this is our sacramental life. We are sacramental people and beings, and because of that, we understand it's right there, it felt like I could have lost you or some people, but nah, see, I feel like it's all connected. Why is it all connected? Because it's a relation to. If we're understanding what philokalia, right? People go, oh, that's the kind of weird esoteric prayer book of the Orthodox, right? Well, what does it mean? Love of the beautiful, right? Love of the beautiful, the art of prayer. That's not just the fathers being kind of cheeky and trying to find a cool branding approach, right? It's like that use of metaphor is there for a reason, because without that sense of artistry, it's like you're just saying words, just like magic, looking to have a result.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, right? And especially in terms of AI, in that image of relationality, right, and in our kind of Trinitarian language, we have the answer for the AI problem, right? I think that if you've read, I don't know if you've read the Pope's encyclical, the recent encyclical where he deals with AI stuff. It's really great in the sense that clearly he's understanding a little bit of what you're saying, which is that he sees immediately, because he's still a Trinitarian, that he can see that AI doesn't have that relationality. It's not actually in relationship with you. It doesn't actually have embodied encounter with the things that it's talking about. It has no understanding of them. It has no love. It has no desire. It has no eros, right? That's kind of driving it forward, and therefore it can never be conscious. It's not possible for it to be conscious, because what we understand as consciousness, even though it's a modern term, has to do with our capacity also to encounter others and to kind of exist in a community. So I think that really is the key to understanding, to really always remembering that the AI it's a tool, right? It can never. And that's why I tell people, like, don't ask AI for advice ever.
That's like such a hard line. It leaves like a hard line.
And don't treat it as a friend. Don't ask it for advice. Don't look any kind of counsel. Just don't. I mean, unless it's like, what kind of hammer should I use to hit this nail? Like that you can ask. But anything that has to do with you, with your personal life, with your spiritual life, you should never. And if any type of software that offers this, like a kind of virtual spiritual counsel, I think should be completely thrown out because of what you said, which is that the relationality and the way you talk about Saint Sophrony, I think is beautiful, because you're saying, I now have his text, but it's like it's not enough. Like, I want to be in connection with the things that he's connected with. I want to obviously ask for his intercession. I want to venerate his icon, because it's not just about information. It is about that invisible spark, right? That gets transmitted when you have a master, like you talked about, a master and an apprentice. I definitely think that's the key, and that's what obviously as Christians we can offer as a way for people to discern.
And it's funny to me because I think that's one of the purposes of the icon. I mean, the icon does so much, right? It's pedagogical, it's all these things, but in regard to the pedagogical, like, what's it instructing? And for me, getting back to this thing about the inferiority complex, this is I want to bring that up, because I think these are the things that I would like to see the church, Christians, really kind of guard. Like, there are these things that, like, we have to guard now,
Yeah, for sure.
Because if we don't guard them, and if we don't know what we need to guard, then they're going to be just kind of out there. And it's not even so much that they'll be taken from us, but to some degree, we lose our ability to interact with them again. So, for instance, this thing of, we have this inferiority complex where we want to say, we can't really say something. We've taken this idea, many people in the church, that there's just boundaries where the church can't speak on. And that's true. I mean, we don't really need the church to say anything about, how, the carburetor.
How to fix your car.
You know what I'm saying? But it's bled into these areas where I'm just, like I say, like with mental health. It's like, no, the church should be the first people to talk about mental health because we know what man is.
Yeah. But see, the church does have something to do about how to fix your car, because it frames the whole question around how to fix your car. It sets up the honesty that exists between the mechanic and the person that has the car. It sets up the respect you would have for someone. The people that are making the car, all of that, that's what is behind. Without that, you have no car. Without that, you have no store, you have nothing. So the church has a lot to say about the frame, and that has to do with the spark that we're talking about, is that the relationality underpins even the technical questions, because even technical questions are based on trust. When I buy a new thing for my car, it's the trust that makes me think that this was well made. Yes. It's the fact that I know that there's a human that is maybe sufficiently in my image that he knows not to just mess with me and to give me something that'll break down.
Because he doesn't want his little girl getting in a car accident because it wasn't cared for.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right.
And so thank you for that, because I agree. I mean, the church has something to say about everything, because there's nothing created that doesn't have anything in relation to God or to us.
Yeah.
But I just want to, getting back to that point of the inferiority complex, because we've taken that in, though. I'll give you examples. Years ago, when people were really taking umbrage, and I get it, it's not personal, I get it, but people were taking umbrage, again, I'm referring to, when on the real path, we were kind of like, I'm speaking polemically. I'm addressing however many people. I'm not going to, there's polemics, but it's like, it's like demons, Ouija boards, whatever, right? But they would take umbrage and they'd be like, well, you don't understand how LMs work, actually. I'm da-da-da-da-da-da. So you don't really have a place to, and I've encountered this. I've encountered this with people in all kinds of other spheres. You know, I've had law enforcement, you know, kind of say things to me like, well, you don't really understand, you know, X, Y, and Z, so be careful how you're critiquing this and that, right? You know, that's fine, but my problem that I'm speaking of right now is when we kind of internalize that, and it really begins to cripple us in our ability to kind of call forth that reality, that awareness of our relationship.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I think you're right.
Hesitate.
I think that people have to distinguish between the discussing the technical aspect of something. Like, for example, like obviously as a priest, you wouldn't want to give someone technical legal advice.
Right.
But you can give them the advice that's before the technical
their ethos,
legal
their
advice.
approach to it.
Right? The ethical, the human aspect, right? The relational aspect. And I think that this is also real with AI. So, you know, when we perceive that there's something in the LLMs that's akin to divination, you know, this is nothing to do with the technical thing that you're doing. It's like, no, I know that I have a basic understanding of how divination would function. You know, it's like creating a type of random interconnection, and then through the insight of the person that looks at the interconnections, then a meaning is drawn out of that randomness, right? That's how the crystal balls, you know, looking at a pool of water, all of these things are basically, it's like, it's not just the thing, it's the relationship between the insight of the person and the chaos, right? So if we look at how AI is trained, that's how it's trained. It's basically, the way AI was trained was they would generate stuff that was random, and then someone, like an actual person, would say, this good, this bad, and then would continue and give it its qualitative interactions, so that ultimately the way that the AI would generate the chaos would be more and more formed to the insights of the humans that were training it. And so it does have a relationship with divination, right? And so does it mean that the LLMs themselves are evil? No, I don't think so. But I think that we have to be aware of what it is that's going on so that we can also understand the way in which it can be used in the manners that divination is prohibited in Christianity. There are reasons why divination is prohibited, because you're trying to master your life, you're trying to master possibility, you're trying to make yourself God and see what is real about you and what is real about the world. And so can you invoke a demon using AI? I think, yes, you can. Right?
100% you can.
Yeah, because it has
100%.
everything you need to be able to do something like that. I once talked to an AI developer, and I was trying to get to that, right? Because the person wasn't necessarily a believer or a Christian, but I said, let's say you take just like the Jordan Peterson vision of what a God could be, let's say, right? So you say, there are words that are related to war, right? And those words, they congregate, right? And they exist in a network, right? That you could delimit. You could put a line around it. You could say, these are all the words that are related to war, and that they're interconnected, and they have a statistical like relation to each other. And I said, well, could you invoke the god of war in an AI? Because it's all there, all the terms, everything that is related. And at first the guy didn't understand, but as I explained it, it's almost like, yeah, of course you could do that. But of course you could isolate a spirit in the mechanics of the language, and then you could make it speak in a manner that would go into the direction that a divination you would want. And so I think that we just have to be aware of that and understand that there are relationships with that, so that we're not also duped, because people get duped. I mean, my goodness, I've had, sadly, I mean, I know as a priest, maybe you've also encountered this. I've encountered AI psychosis several times now. And people who get completely drawn into the AI, into this relationship, and then ultimately become crazy.
Or remember, I was talking about that person who's taken in that theodic question. but one of them was from that.
It's from the AI, yeah. And so this is obviously, and you could see, it's like, it really is like a classic magic story. It's a classic sorcerer story,
That's
right?
it.
The sorcerer starts, invokes the spirit, thinks that he's in control, gets the spirit to do things for him, but as he continues to interact with the spirit, at some point, the spirit overwhelms him and he basically goes crazy. It's like, well, that happens to people with AI all the time. And so there's a clear connection. So we definitely have to know that so that we're not subject to it.
And I think this is really important because these old tropes, these Faustian deals and all these things, those sorcerer story, we need to know them in some regards because, in every regard, but in many respects, it also has this great value of pointing us to the good and helping us to go deeper in the good. Because I think that's something I'm also very concerned with, which is, it's a bit of a shift, but it ties to it, with the surge and all the people coming in and the proliferation of people's awareness of orthodoxy. That it has value. The jury's out whether it's good, but it has value, right? But I think one of the things that I'm looking at is we need to not be static who are already in the church. And I think that's I think that problem is tied to some of this too. We're static and we think that we have come to the height of things. An individual has this experience, they've become complacent, comfortable, and they think they don't have any more room to grow. Like, no one ever says that because that sounds ridiculously absurd in its hubris. But de facto, people function like that.
Yeah, sure.
Right? They do that in their marriages, they do that in their relation to the church. Right? It's like, well, I'm good. You know what I mean? I stopped drinking, I'm not looking at porn all the time, I'm whatever, I'm good. And so everything just becomes relegated to like what you're not doing versus growing in virtue, growing in the knowledge of God, holiness, right? I think the average person isn't doing that in the church. This is a big, I don't know, Father, how can you make those sweeping assumptions? Well, here's the thing. Unfortunately, the church it can become an experience like anything else. We come in, we want to kind of get the thing, we master it, we want to integrate things in a comfortable rate. Very few of us get off on being uncomfortable unless you find that thing. A bodybuilder gets it. A bodybuilder's like, no, me being uncomfortable is how I grow. He embraces it. An artist, a true artist, embraces the uncomfortability. I think Orthodox Christians, what makes you Orthodox from my perspective in many ways is your ability to embrace the uncomfortable aspect of your inner life. That's how you're propelled further into virtue, closer to Christ. So that being said, if we don't have that insight of that's what we're doing here, then as people kind of come in, it can become very easily relegated to a very kind of utilitarian approach to the icon, to spiritual life. And the problem is that with the kind of proliferation again of tools, it's easy to kind of get, learn this, learn that. Without that real human aspect of having to work for it, to get the grind, everything becomes really placid in the wrong way. It begins to rot, I think. And so the icon in this discussion, I think, can wake us up to something on the bigger level of just how it isn't just like in the realm of the icon of our spiritual life. It's in all of our aspect of us just becoming comfortable and realizing we're not guarding the thing. Like, we're not guarding our connection. We're not guarding some of the things in our life that are sacred. Some of, I don't want to get into talk about the mysteries here, but when we talk about the mysteries, it's not just about the kind of the tangibles of what the materials are that we use for the sacraments. It's actually how do you engage? How do you go deeper? And I think that people being able to plug into AI certain things and to get something spit out to them without the need of actually being with a godfather or whatever, this is just as much part of the problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I
had an encounter this a couple weeks ago. I was telling you I went to California with my son, and I went to a hardcore show, went to a Sleeping Giant show, whatever. And all that's pertinent because I watched something pretty amazing. I'm at this hardcore show and I'm seeing all these people who, years ago knew nothing and I'm there as a priest. So,
at the show?
At the
you
show.
were wearing a cassock and everything?
Yeah, I'm there as a priest, right? And so people are coming in like, Father, can I get your blessing? Talking about their conversion to the church. At the hardcore show in California, it was wonderful because I'm seeing this subculture, which is my culture.
Yeah.
It's like real time, Vladimir bringing in the Rus. It's real time watching people transition out of this barbaric culture into the beauty of the church. I'm watching it real time, right? So I'm seeing people wanting dignity. I'm seeing people, they're playing their understanding of hierarchy to whatever greater or lesser degree they understand it. It isn't just abstract head knowledge, they're embodying it. You see what I'm saying? In the midst of all this space of a hardcore show, to a larger degree than people would realize, is being sanctified, set apart, and being baptized. It's not crazy because you had to be there. And those who were there, they would know exactly what I'm talking about, right? But there was also one person in particular who wanted to have the conversation. And he's wanting to talk about mysteries, and he's the pastor of a large, medium Protestant church. He starts talking about the mysteries, and I start trying to explain to him, well, it's not really like you think. You're approaching the mysteries and wanting the thing from reading what you think is the church fathers and reading this and that, and you're wanting all the stuff, but you're not wanting to be in relation with the church, with the body of Christ, with the bride of Christ. You see what I'm saying? And he's able to do that to a greater degree than he wouldn't have been able to do what he's doing, 20 years ago. Like you had Peter Gilchrist and these people at the EOC, they had to bleed to come into the Orthodox church.
It was rough.
It was rough.
It was rough for me. I don't know when you converted. When I converted to Orthodoxy,
it was rough for me.
No one was helping me out. There's no one to help me out.
You know what I'm saying? And now you can go.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's part of the thing is like I'm saying we need to keep an eye on that also, because when people kind of come in, and without that initiation into things, which I think that's one of the things I want to say is like AI takes out the initiation.
Yeah. Well, for sure. I think that's the clergy have to have a proper catechumenate, even almost more so now than back in the day. Like I barely had catechumenate, because it was so hard anyways, just like to become Orthodox that people almost thought.
You found the secret tunnel? Man, just because you found it, you're in.
Yeah, it's like by the time you've actually come in, you've been beaten so much that they're like, yeah, you'll get it, right? Because obviously now you're in and you'll get it. But now because it's true that because of everything is the online stuff and everything's so kind of easy and there's so much information out there that I think we need clear catechumenate and like a clear buffer so people don't. No, the fact that usually most catechumens take at least a year, I think that's great. I think that's really good. We definitely need to maintain that and not make it easier for anyone because like you said, if we're not careful, and it's probably already going to happen, if we're not careful, we're going to see a big exodus from the church in the next 2 years. See a lot of people give up, a lot of people leave because they haven't been, in some ways they haven't sufficiently wanted it, right? Sufficiently struggled to make it.
You can see now the thumbnail. I just saw one the other day, whatever. It's like, it's like some rando girl, like, my first time experiencing Orthodox burnout. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, man, the
Orthodox burnout. It's like, it's called repentance. I don't know. What are you talking about? It's like I experience Orthodox burnout every time I sin. It's like, Yeah. No, I know what you mean. It's hard, man. But the Orthodox life is hard.
But the ability to kind of, put it together, package it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And have and build something. This is one of the things about mentoring artists, like trying to form and mentor artists. It's like I try to tell them, and this is one of the things I run across. It's like one of the first things you've got to learn is you've got to learn to not want to do the thing to have the end product, because that's part of pencil time. That's part of having a sketchbook. That's part of these things. Is like, yes, it's to hone your skill, but for me, I try to tell them a lot of this is like, do you have a whole corpus of work that no one's ever going to see and you're okay with that? Because if you don't, you got a problem. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, my 19-year-old son, you know, I'm teaching him, he wants to be an iconographer, he's putting stuff out, whatever. I'm gonna make sure he watches this, right? But part of what I'm trying to get him is I'm like, don't be so quick to throw it out there and do the thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, hey man, you done your pencil time, right? He's gonna watch it, so, you know, you gotta put the time in and you gotta want to do it. No one's gonna see it, but guess what? God sees it, you see it. But without that, that's the kind of love.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh man, people may look at my relationship with my wife. I'm like, it's okay, you see the fruit of it, you see my beautiful kids, you see this and that, but you don't see, that's it.
Yeah, that's the real stuff.
Those volumes of the unknown.
Yeah, for sure. I think in terms of being artists, that is definitely one of the things that the AI is going to tempt people into kind of drawing away. A lot of people ask me, you know, should I be an artist? Like, you know, I'd like to be an illustrator, I'd like to be an iconographer or whatever. And my first question to them is always, you know, especially if it's someone in like their 20s, like, do you draw every day? And if they say no, I'm like, well, do something else. Like, because really, if you don't draw every single day, you know, then this is not the life for you. You know, I mean, maybe when you're later in life, you won't have to do that. But if you're in your 20s and you're not drawing every day, and you're not going to be an illustrator, like, forget it. You know?
Yeah.
Because like you said, that it's not because you need to necessarily put in the time you do, but it's also because that signifies the love that will make what you're doing good. You know,
100%.
the kind of passion, obsession that you have, and you know.
100%.
And like you said, there's something also about that's where you can work out things that if you try to make a final piece, you're always trying to make it look nice. And so you see it, right? Artists that can't draw hands, you know, in their entire life, they don't draw hands because they're always avoiding it.
That's right.
They can't draw feet because they're always avoiding it. It's like, no, that space, you know, your sketchbook or whatever, that's where you can.
You got to work it out, man. You got to work it out.
Get through the pain, you know?
Yeah, you got to work it out. And it's funny because I think for me, the vocation, not the occupation of it, but the vocation of being an artist, I thank God for it. It saved me. Without it, I'd have nothing. But the tension for me was that space in which I had to make sure my hierarchies were correct. And by it not being the thing, it taking the back seat when it needed to, it then allowed me to love my wife better. Like, I'm not the best husband, I'm the best dad, but like what I do have in regards of learning how to love, I learned from art. I learned from being an artist because I learned there, I was putting my time in because I wanted to, because I learned to love. And I learned that most of my pencil time, most of my time doing stuff, it wasn't good. It didn't have the effect that I wanted. And that's part of how I learned to love. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the thing with the church. You know, that's part of the thing is like, you have to learn to love the volumes that no one's gonna see. You know, if we're looking at years or whatever as volumes, there's gonna be whole volumes of your marriage, of your life, of your time in the church that no one's gonna see. And I mean, God sees it, and that you have to do it an audience of one. And if you don't have that, and if you have something that's coming in seducing you to make you think like, well, you know, like you could do this and that, it's like, no, keep it as an audience of one. And that's one of the things I worry about too in regards of when it makes it easy for you to execute and those volumes of the unspoken and the difficulties aren't there, most people are gonna take that deal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, that is the thing with, if we go back to AI, that is difficult, is that for us, AI is way less dangerous than it is for the people that are coming up because we didn't have it. So we worked really hard and we did all the things we needed to do. We did all the beginning steps and the intermediate steps. And now by the time you have the tool, you're like, oh, I can do so much. Now the problem is that the people that are coming up, they don't have to put in the time in order to get the result. And so it's difficult. That's making it difficult. It's going to create more dependence on the machine because people won't have done all the steps to get there, and that's not just in art, but in everything. That's one of the problems that we have is that we're making ourselves dependent on it because it's so powerful that the young people coming up won't learn what they need to learn. You know, like my son, you know, he's in the Coast Guard, right? studying to be in the Coast Guard. And so they have that different approach. They have the right approach, which is that they're literally, the machine will calculate everything, but they're teaching them to like learn how to navigate with the stars.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so he has to learn to like navigate with the stars.
Yeah.
And the young people are like, why are we doing this? Because the machine does it all, but they're thinking, no, we're not just making a technician, like we're making a mariner. We're making someone that knows what it means to be on the water, knows what it means to be in this dangerous place. If everything breaks down, they can still do it. Obviously, it's still poorer than the ancient navigator, what they had to do. But I just found it interesting to see that no, they're teaching them all the levels so that they will use the machine, but they still have some memory of why it's doing what it's doing. It's like because of what we see up in the heavens.
That's so great. That's so mariner.
Yeah, mariner.
Just even hearing that, just he's going,
that's right.
Like get after it. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I want to ask you a question. A little shift from the. I want to ask you. I've been dying to ask you. I have people ask me from time to time, and they ask these questions, and part of it is some of the weirdness that people get into. They're too scrupulous in regards to becoming Orthodox, but in regards of like, well, the Orthodox, are we allowed to have statues, carvings, da-da-da-da-da? And of course, because, you've really, it's not even like a revival, but I mean, no one's gonna doubt, you've been the one you've been the vanguard and the spearhead of opening carving.
Yeah, making it more, at least in America, making it more visible.
So one of the things is like when I come back from Serbia and I show pictures, it's like, there's statues and everything there. It's like, oh, in an Orthodox country, I'm like, guys, it's, right? So talk a little bit about that.
So we can, if we're going to go, we're going to go very strict. So if we're going to be as strict as possible, like we're going to use the rudder as like this, this is the strictest canonical interpretation. And so in the rudder, the argument is that the Orthodox are allowed relief work. And that relief work, he says that relief work is completely an icon. There's absolutely no problem. But then he says that we shouldn't have statues. And the argument in the rudder is that if you have a painting or you have a relief, it's an image of something else. But if you have a statue, it's the thing in itself. That's the basic argument in the rudder. Now, I'll be totally honest with you, I don't buy it. I don't think that it's convincing, but that is the strictest of all in terms of canonical understanding. Now, in practice, there were clearly statues in Constantinople before iconoclasm. And one of the first images we have after iconoclasm, we have these ivory images that are some of the first icons in the East that come after iconoclasm. And one of them is a statue. Right, so there's a little statue of the Mother of God that is part of that series of royal icons, ivory icons. And so even after the council, there were some statues. Now it's possible that in practice there were far less statues. Sometimes I think maybe also as a way to not provoke the iconoclast in a way, like almost like as something of a compromise with the iconoclast. It's possible. It's possible that already they had a sense that the problem with it, because we now use the images clearly and dogmatically for veneration, the statue presents a bit of a problem because it has a backside. How do you deal with it? Like because you want to interact with the person, and you don't interact with someone's backside when you're interacting with the person. Right. And so in Orthodox countries, there are statues. There are very few of them, but there are. And usually the way they're treated will make them more like what we're used to thinking of icons. So you put the statue in a niche so that when you encounter it, you're only encountering the face. You don't see the backside. They'll be placed in a certain way that it's easier to see that they're to be venerated. And so there are statues in Serbia. There are statues in Greece. There are statues in Russia. There was one of the reasons why we hate the statue so much is that in Russia there was a massive backlash against carving under Peter the Great. The Synod under Peter the Great banned carved icons completely. Now, it's very fascinating what happened in Russia because people went crazy. People went into churches, ripped carvings off they had fully carved iconostases. So they had carved icons in the iconostases, painted, carved with the people went in, ripped that stuff out, massive burning, statues on churches, went in, burned all these statues. They found crazy things where they find statues like hidden up in the rafters of churches, in Moscow or in St. Petersburg, because people just tried to save them out of the fire. Some half-burnt things that are like just, people pull them out, like put them up in the rafters, right? But what's fascinating is if you look at the pronouncement of the council, the pronouncement is that they don't want statues, actually they don't want carvings because they're ugly. And that's what they say. That's what they say. They say if we'd had, Oholiab or the great carvers of the Ark of the Covenant today, then we could have carved statues. But because these statues and these carvings are bad quality, we should not have them. And what they mean by bad quality in the time of Peter the Great is they don't look like Italian art. That's what they mean. And so it's a weird inversion where they did...
The inferiority complex we were talking about?
Yeah, that's right. So they did ban icons and carvings in Russia for a time. But the reason was not because they were dogmatically problematic, it was because they thought they wanted it to look like Western art, right? And so just to say how complicated it is, the story of carvings and of statues in the church, I always say, but you end up having a tradition, right? So when you make an image, you want the image to be accepted into the tradition that you're doing, right? If I make an icon, I'm making it so that it will find its home in the church. So there's no reason to do something that will provoke for no reason.
To be rejected.
Right? Exactly. So if an Orthodox patron would ask me to make a statue, I would ask why. Right? I would say, well, why do you want a statue? What is behind that request? Not that I would say no at the outset, but I would definitely inquire to make sure that this is not a gesture of provocation, that it won't be inserted into a context where people will reject it. I have made statues before, but they've always been for Catholic patrons. So that's the way that I take it. One of the things that I've seen in Russia that I think is actually really interesting is what they do is that they don't have statues in the churches. They'll have painted icons in the churches or in relief icons. And then sometimes they'll make a statue outside the church. So like, let's say I saw a church, for example, that's dedicated to Saint Methodius. And then on the inside there's painted icons, and on the outside there's like a bronze statue.
That's like St. Sava's,
right,
in Belgrade.
And
huge
so,
statue.
So the statue that's outside is not meant to be venerated, right? It's not a liturgical thing. It's not something that participates in the liturgical life of the church. It exists more as a historical representation of the person that just is there in the park to be remembered. So in that case, I don't see a problem because it's not a theological question, right? It's not something that has to do with liturgical practice. So I think actually that's a great way of integrating it, where you know that the statues are there to be solid and sturdy and to help us remember the person, but we don't venerate them unless they're placed in a way that is more proper for veneration.
And it's great because it also shows us there's also that question of a lot of people that come in. I'm an artist, I want to do art, but I don't know if I want to be an iconographer. But I actually really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great.
I think it's great.
We don't want all artists to be iconographers. That's
100%,
ridiculous.
100%.
Why would we want all Orthodox artists to be iconographers?
100%. And so that's a great example of the use of art and how art becomes something that's, even religious art. And I think it's important for us, I think it's sophisticated in the right way. We need to make that delineation between, religious art, let's say, and liturgical art that's used for veneration, art that's used for high purposes. It's not, right? I think that understand that hierarchy is good.
Yeah.
I think we want to articulate it.
Yeah, and that's like, because people have seen some of the objects I make. So I put what I call quasi-liturgical images on t-shirts. Usually what I'll do is it'll be a warrior or an angel, and then I won't put an inscription. And the reason these are decisions I'm making to say, no, this is not to be venerated. This is not the same as the image in church. It's an extension of it. It's something that's out there, that's meant to be like a testimony, that's meant to be like a memory. It's meant to celebrate in a lower way the person or the image that I'm doing. And to me, that has been my way of doing something like what we're saying, which is to say, no, I can have a statue outside and it can be really beautiful and realistic or have a kind of social realism to it, but on the inside of the church, and we have dedicated images with, the way we traditionally make icons.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. One of the things that I'd love to see more of is just me. You know how the Romanians have that tradition of having iconography outside the temple? And I'm not talking mosaics, right? They have iconography out the temple,
icons,
right? I would love to see more reliefs.
Yeah.
Outside of the temple. I mean, I've
seen some beautiful ones in, where was it? I forget which city, but I have seen that where there's on the church, they had these beautiful stone carvings like on the outside, and then on the inside they had painted an icon. So yes, I think it's definitely possible. Yeah. I would love to see that too.
Do you find that people are coming to you more in regards of patrons, like hired patrons, not just individual family patrons, but like bishops or like hierarchs or anyone who would have, just to be kind of simple, the authority or the power to want to have people been talking to you about, hey, what would it look like for you to do release, or like we want to do a cathedral? Are you in conversations like this now?
I'm not taking commissions anymore. I'm not really carving much. This is a weird kind of season in my life. I stopped taking commissions a few years ago. And so I wanted to get back to it, but it's just right now I still have a workshop. My assistant makes images, under my supervision, but they're very simple, like usually ornamental, like very beautiful kind of ornamental things. But right now I'm not taking any commissions. But I have made some church signs, where it's like a relief icon or like for the front of the church, let's say under a roof where I did an image of the Panagia to be outside. So I have done that, and I mean in the future I just made a giant cross. That was one of the last commissions that I did, was a 9-foot cedar cross, to go outside of a church, and I really enjoyed doing that. So I mean in the future at some point I would definitely be. I've done gravestones also to do some kind of the outside, but that would be great. I mean,
there was a time there. I don't know what came of it. You were doing some online teaching and stuff. I don't know what you did with it, but have you thought about that? Because getting back to being a teacher, being a mentor, and like having a school, and like, have you thought about?
Well, I used to do workshops, right? I used to actually do workshops, and that was before COVID. Mm-hmm. And then during COVID, obviously we couldn't, so I kind of made online courses. And since then, now my life has taken a whole other turn, and so I haven't gone back to do the last icon carving class I did was maybe like 2023 or something, around there, 2022, 2023, and then I stopped. So it's something I'd like to do, but it's hard, doing these week-type workshops. It's good, I enjoy it, it's great, but I don't know. I've only had one student in all the students that I've had in the live workshop that has kind of taken it up and is doing it semi-professionally now. Because it's not, you need that mentorship, and it's hard to do in these kind of week-long workshops. I would love to see icon carving being taught. Let's say now at St. Tikhon's, now they have that art school there. I would love to see that. That'd be amazing. Sadly, at this point in my life, I'm probably not the one to do it.
Yeah. But the question is, do you know of others who could
do that? Who could teach it? In America, I mean, it would be maybe bring someone in from Serbia. They're doing some amazing stuff, like in terms of miniatures especially, or someone from Russia that's doing there are some larger relief artists that are doing some good stuff. And so, I mean, I think it would be great. I'm really, there's definitely one thing in my life that I'm happy is to see that, to see now. When I started icon carving, I would get a lot of "that's not Orthodox" answer, which is complete hogwash.
I
mean, it's like they're everywhere in the church,
It's hogwash.
And so now I'm happy that I don't hear that anymore. At least I think most people have accepted the fact that relief icons are part of our tradition.
Yeah, that's great.
Have you ever tried?
I haven't tried. I've thought about it a little bit. My boy, the one who's he's got it. He's got the the gene.
Yeah.
You know, he puts his hand to things, and you know, so I'm just trying to give him the ethos, whatever. So he was even working with Lazarus.
Yeah, Lazarus has been doing some beautiful things.
You know what I mean? So I would like for my boy and like other people to really get into it, because I haven't tried, but I have such a love of it. I appreciate it so much. And, you know, for me, the icon is, I mean, it's how I came to the church. It's how I became Orthodox. But it's beyond the icon. For me, it's like the big picture liturgically. That's why icon carving and just, you know, I mean, this was like designing this whole like designing a temple, like that reality of being able to bring all these pieces together, that's what I love to see. So even on like a larger scale of seeing it happen in churches. And I think icon relief and carving is just, I pray it explodes. I really do. And I pray just, that's the thing is I want iconography to explode. I want it all to explode, because that's how you actually convert a nation. But it's got to be done not just well, but right. In that sense. You know?
I mean, for sure, the beauty of the Orthodox Church is a great balm for our modern ugly world. You know, it's like there's nothing uglier than a gas station. There's nothing uglier than a fast food or a strip mall or all the horrible stuff that we have to, or you know, like a highway overpass. And so we have so much ugliness around us, and that I think when people walk into an Orthodox church that is deliberate and has that ethos, then it's a great sigh.
And I think also too, for this period of time that we're in, it's not only a great sigh, but leaning into a little bit of the ugliness that surrounds it. It's kind of like in great darkness, even the single flame of candle is so bright. When we did the temple here, I've talked about this before, there was people who were upset that so much, you know, time and money and effort was being put in to the temple here. And those people left, God bless them, right? But to me, it was like, there was no other way to do it. Like, we're in the hood, right? As you know, and there's blight all around us. It's so much brighter when you come in here, and it's the other world, you know? So I think having these little, you know, I think the way forward is not even building churches, because that takes a lot of expense and knowledge. I think we need to have lots of little chapels. If we just start populating the world, you know, they're building these data centers. We need to start building chapels.
I agree.
Little chapels, beautiful chapels. And those little chapels of just beauty in this world of ugliness, metaphorically and literally, I think that's the thing that really, because that's what leads people. That's what inspires them. It's not so much fact and truth. It's beauty first, right? Beauty is what inspires.
There are different, like, you know, Andrew Gould, the architect, he's had that project forever. The idea, you know, what he calls like these little jewel-like chapels that we could populate, that we could put even like in a city. You know, obviously this requires money, but like imagine, you know, in Chicago, you have this like just jewel on a corner, right? This thing that completely stands out from everything else, and the doors are open. You know, there's people singing the Psalms inside. You walk in and it's like, it just takes you into that other world, you know. I think that's definitely something that could be amazing. Aidan Hart in the UK also kind of has that same similar type of project, which is to put, you know, for example, like there are still some pilgrimage routes in the UK that the Orthodox will do. Like Our Lady of Walsingham is a shrine that's recognized by the Orthodox. And so on those pilgrimage routes, could you have like just like a little jewel-like chapel that people just walk by, go in, and you know, then you're like, wow, this takes me out of my drudgery, you know. We can not only dare to dream, we can pray. That's right.
We can pray. This is great. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
It's always a joy, Father,
to be with you, you know, and glad you're here, and you know, we'll talk some more. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Father. Thanks.
God bless.